Welcome to the 2021-2022 Perkins V funding updates for the Super App. My name is Jessica Vallelongo. I'm the Executive Director of Quality Diplomas for the Office of Career and College Readiness with the Louisiana Department of Education. This slide shows the timeline for Super App from the planning resources release date to the competitive funding allocations submitted to BESI for approval. All 2021-2022 Super App and school system planning resources can be found in the Department School System School Improvement Library. To access the presentation recordings, please click on the image below. Today's objectives are to receive an overview of Perkins V, the program-specific questions, funding requirements, and how to incorporate performance indicators into program evaluation. Today's agenda, we will do an overview of Perkins V, program-specific questions, and required uses of funds. To start with a brief overview of Perkins V. With Perkins V, there is a continuation of regional interactions, but the current Perkins regional coalitions use the regional labor market designations from the Louisiana Workforce Commission. This supports the Act's requirement for collaboration with multiple regional stakeholders, including regional labor market organizations and boards, as well as local business, industry, and community members. Under Louisiana's state plan, each Perkins regional coalition decides how the Perkins funds will be expended in that region, specifically choosing which 3 of the 16 national clusters support high-wage, high-demand, or emerging job sectors of the region, and more definitively, which approved Perkins-eligible CTE programs of study aligned with these clusters will be supported with Perkins funds. Eligible secondary recipients, those who have a grade structure with at least a grade 9, will budget allocated Perkins V funds to support local CTE activities aligned with the approved Perkins-eligible CTE programs of study. Additionally, recipients must qualify for a minimum funding level of $15,000 or either request a waiver to participate as an eligible recipient or join a consortium. Programs of study. According to Louisiana's state plan, a Perkins-eligible CTE program of study has these 7 characteristics noted on this slide. Please note the reference to designing the program of study in consultation with regional economic development entities and the integration of student support services to ensure equity and access. Additionally, for the purposes of allocating funds, the program of study must be approved prior to the eligible recipient receiving final Super App approval. Currently, Perkins regional coalitions are submitting proposals for approval. Information about programs of study will be shared through regional Perkins meetings. Please recall that to further promote continuous improvement of career and technical education programs, an eligible recipient should not continue to spend Perkins funds on a specific activity within a Perkins-eligible CTE program of study for more than 3 consecutive years, unless program improvement and/or program expansion is evident within the Perkins-eligible CTE program of study, or the eligible recipient provides evidence that discontinuation of the program would discontinuation of the funding would adversely affect program size, scope, and quality, and a plan to transition support for the activity to other funding. The first of the 3 years will begin with the 2021-2022 basic grant year. A few major funding shifts for 2021-2022. Historically, eligible recipients spent basic grant funds to support CTE activities aligned to 3 regional clusters or within a 4th locally identified cluster. With Perkins V, the minimum requirements for The minimum requirements for eligible recipients remain the same from Perkins IV, with the exception of two new requirements. First, with the 2021-2022 grant year, the eligible recipient, using its comprehensive local needs assessment, evaluates its CTE needs and budgets its basic Perkins funds to support activities aligned with the approved Perkins eligible CTE program of study in 3 regional clusters. Second, there is a 3-year funding cap for these activities. So the eligible recipient begins expenditures of funds with a plan to fund that activity differently within 3 years. Embedded in Perkins V is a continuous programmatic evaluation to ensure that funds are being expended to support CTE activities that are of a sufficient size, scope, and quality to be effective. These two requirements, along with annual programmatic evaluations, support a more focused approach to spending Perkins funds, as well as a focus on initiating, innovating, and improving CTE programs, especially programs in which students have opportunities to earn basic and advanced credentials, as well as technical associate degrees, career and technical certificates, etc. Next, we'll look at program-specific questions. There are 9 narratives which a recipient uses to describe its annual evaluation of its CTE program to ensure that activities are of sufficient size, scope, and quality to be effective. Embedded in each narrative are specific elements of the program to be highlighted. Thus, each narrative should be unique and responsive to requested description. This slide shows a brief description of the narratives. Beginning with data reporting for 2019-2020 school year, data needed for federal reporting and for the comprehensive local needs assessment will no longer be aggregated using career and technical education software system, which we often refer to as CATE. Rather, these data will be aggregated by an LDOE data team using LDOE data systems. Thus, school systems should continue to follow LDOE processes for uploading data to LDOE data systems, including eScholars, SIS, STS, and eDirect. Following timelines aligned to the federal reporting deadlines, the LDOE data team will aggregate data for sharing as per federal reporting requirements and will announce the release of these data reports via the newsletter. As you review the required narratives, you will notice that there are several narratives that include requests for specific information. Note that narrative number 2 explicitly requires a description of how Perkins funds are being spent. Here, the recipient should align expenditures with approved Perkins programs of study. For narrative 4, beginning with the 2021-2022 grant, the recipient will include data about the number of students earning dual enrollment, earning basic and advanced credentials, and prepare to include, beginning in the 2021-2023 grant, the number of students earning basic and advanced credentials aligned to approved Perkins eligible CTE programs of study. Similarly, with narrative number 7, the recipient will include data about the number of students earning not only dual enrollment credit, but also technical certificates of technical studies, career and technical certificates, technical diplomas, and associate degrees, and be prepared in 2022-2023 grant year to specify the number of students earning dual enrollment credit, technical dual enrollment credit, certificates of technical studies, career and technical certificates, technical diplomas, and associate degrees aligned to Perkins eligible CTE programs of study as well. Also, for narrative number 9, the recipient will identify explicitly the performance gaps and strategies to address the gaps. Once described, this recipient in subsequent years will specify the results of the intervention and what are the next steps. These narratives support the recipient with program evaluation and ensure that funds are being expended as per the state plan. Concise responses to program questions. The comprehensive local needs assessment in-depth data review is essential for connecting local CTE programs to regional and local workforce needs. It provides data from programmatic evaluation and assists the recipient with ensuring optimal expenditure of funds. Aligning the comprehensive local needs assessment with programmatic outcomes emphasizes viewing CTE across the spectrum rather than through a prism of funded items. It supports specifically the funded IBCs and how the funding ties directly to improved outcomes for students. The funded IBCs are embedded in the courses identified in each approved Perkins eligible CTE program of study and on the attestation document submitted to the Perkins Regional Coalition Coordinator. Ultimately, the school systems utilize the comprehensive local needs assessment, develop a CTE program that supports students to explore and acquire post-secondary recognized credentials aligned to the state focus list of IBCs. Next, we'll look at required uses of funds. According to the Act, funds should be used to create, develop, implement, replicate, or take to scale evidence-based field-initiated innovations to modernize and improve effectiveness and alignment of career and technical education, and to improve student outcomes in career and technical education, and to rigorously evaluate such innovations, including programs of study aligned to labor market needs in new or emerging fields. Budgeted monies refer to how all monies, especially grant funds, are spent, not just to the expenditure of Perkins funds. Should Perkins funds be budgeted to support uses number 1, 5, and 6? Other funds, such as Title I, Title II, Title V, and DSS, may be spent in ways that support uses number 2, 3, and 4. This is a new aspect of Perkins V, and during the 2020-2021 grant year, the Perkins Program Reader helped eligible recipients to identify that budgeted funds were being spent to address all required uses of Perkins funds. Use number 6 was the most often not included in budgeted monies. For the recipient, there are 3 considerations regarding how Perkins monies are spent and how Perkins programs are broadly supported. 1, basic grant funds are spent to support activities and approved Perkins eligible programs of study that are aligned to regionally selected clusters. 2, activities should be supported with Perkins funds for up to 3 years, with the caveat as previously discussed in this presentation. 3, all required uses of funds must be addressed across all budgeted funds. The Super App's unified planning process really provides the framework to ensuring that this component of the Act is met. This graphic illustrates how to align budget expenditures with narratives in approved Perkins eligible CTE programs of study, beginning with narrative 1, and that provides an overview of the regional collaboration and how the eligible recipient CTE programs align regionally and how local CTE programs is meeting performance indicators. Narrative number 2 describes the local program and its CTE programs are aligned with regional selections. It clearly articulates how and why Perkins funds will be expended and should include reference to other funds supporting CTE initiatives if needed. As previously discussed, Perkins V requires that all of its required uses of funds be addressed across all of budgets. In the graphic here, are examples illustrating how to ensure required uses are addressed across the budget. One final area of concern is ensuring that the budget details reflect the narratives and vice versa. When budgeting the funds, note first the budget item. It is succinct and aligns with statement and narrative two about how funds are being expended for, and specifies the approved program of study with which the funds support. Further, it itemizes the expenditure and identifies the sites receiving the licenses. With Perkins V, each of the components, data, CTE activities, and funding are intertwined through the comprehensive local needs assessment. With the required programmatic evaluation, the eligible recipient is ensuring that it is initiating or improving its CTE programs and that those programs are of sufficient size, scope, and quality to be effective. Super App support. This slide contains Super App support information. All Super App launch presentations and recordings can be accessed via our school improvement library linked on this slide. Please note during November, December, and January, regularly scheduled team monthly calls and office hours will provide opportunities for school system leaders to learn more about specific sections, ask questions, and receive guidance. New this year, the department will offer Super App planning support calls beginning in December, where teams can request one-on-one targeted guidance and support with planning, completing the workbook, and aligning funding to our priorities. Please contact LDOE Grants Help Desk at la.gov with questions.